Let's go back to the 1950s, when your grandma's house smelled like fresh paint hanging in the air, and every toy in the playroom shone with dazzling reds, blues, and yellows. Those colors? They came from lead-based paint, glossy, tough, and resistant to chips. Toy cars, wooden blocks, dolls with perfectly painted rosy cheeks, they all gleamed with that unmistakable shine. Parents believed this paint was safe, ordinary, even a mark of quality and care. Little did they know, while you happily gnawed on a brightly painted train engine, invisible poison lurked beneath the shiny surface. Lead paint was cherished for its vividness and durability, outlasting countless playtimes, scuffs, and hugs. But every chipped corner, every scratched doll's nose was a hidden hazard, slowly seeping danger into childhood. The era's lack of awareness turned these colorful toys into silent threats, a bittersweet signature of that decade's domestic life. Today, you can still glimpse those old toys in dusty attic boxes, their vibrant colors dulled by time, a reminder of innocence mixed with unseen risk. Next, we'll step into the kitchen, where another colorful ingredient shaped family memories of meals and magic. Imagine the 1950s kitchen, aluminum pots gleaming on the stove, their handles whispering promises of never-melting safety. Those handles, often wrapped in asbestos fibers, were part of the miracle material's slow takeover of everyday life. Asbestos was the silent guardian of retreats from the fire, hidden in cozy kitchenware, oven pads, even ironing boards. Its heat-resistant properties made it indispensable. Across the hall in schools, those pop and crackle ceiling tiles absorbing the chatter and fluorescent hum were often laced with the same mineral. The go-to fireproofing material, asbestos was everywhere, in pipes, in wall insulation, in old boilers. Buildings breathed an invisible shield. Its fibers, so fine, so secure, were trusted implicitly by architects and homemakers alike. But beneath that comforting facade, asbestos harbored a deadly secret. Decades after its golden reign, the dust in those ceiling tiles and worn pots was linked to lung diseases, like asbestosis and mesothelioma. By the late 1970s and into the 80s, a reversal unfolded. Regulations tightened. Asbestos was banned from new products and constructions. Classrooms replaced tiles. Kitchens got new cookware. The hero turned villain. Today, the word asbestos often evokes removal suits and cautious inspections rather than the warmth of a family kitchen. Yet, those decades of reliance show how a miracle material's promise can become a cautionary tale. With every old building remodeled and every forgotten pot retired, the ghost of asbestos lingers, a reminder that safety once came woven in silent threads. Step into any mid-century diner or a bustling office, and you'd instantly feel the weight of smoke swirling in the air like invisible wallpaper. Cigarettes weren't just an accessory. They were conversation starters, nerves, soothers, even status symbols. The clatter of coffee cups mingled with the crackle of lighters and the soft ash flicks into glass ashtrays glued to every tabletop, every desk. In hospital rooms, nurses moved between beds, wrangling both care and cigarette breaks behind drawn curtains, a mix of care and smoke that feels unimaginable today. Thick, curling tendrils drifted lazily above typewriters, weaving through the chatter and laughter. In advertising, smooth-talking actors made Marlboro men and Lucky Strike gals synonymous with rugged charm and glamour, selling not just a product, but a lifestyle. Meetings paused while someone grabbed a smoke, chatting with the sticky haze acting as an invisible veil of camaraderie. Even kids growing up knew adults always had one more cigarette just before or after something important. But that blue-gray cloud held more than comfort. The scent etched itself into upholstery, coat collars, and skin, marking a generation. It was sophistication, rebellion, and routine, all wrapped in smoke. Then the science caught up. Health warnings, bans, and the slow dismantling of an indoor ritual that let you smoke in nearly every nook. Today, smoke indoors is a relic, an echo of a time when smoky rooms were the backdrop of life's ordinary moments. But those smoky social rituals still linger faintly in memory, like the glowing ember of a cigarette slowly burning down. The subtle hiss of a fogger drifting down the street was a hallmark of summer evenings, house windows shut tight, kids huddled inside, parents waving off the curious. The neighborhood was soon blanketed in a fine white mist. DDT, the magic bullet against mosquitoes and pests notorious for spreading disease and misery. Your backyard parties, barbecues, and porch sittings thrived under its chemical shield, a protection so trusted it was sprayed liberally from trucks or handheld devices. The scent was faint, a mix of dry powder and reassurance, almost a new seasonal perfume. Advertisements touted DDT as the peak of modern science, the invisible defender making outdoor life safe again. Gardeners sprayed it to save their flowers. Farmers used it to guard crops. But beneath this promise of safety lay an unseen story. Critics were sparse, the dangers not yet clear. Birds began vanishing, silent victims of thinning eggshells. The quiet retreat of butterflies and beneficial insects went almost unnoticed at first. As the years unfurled, whispers became warnings. Rachel Carson's Silent Spring jolted a nation awake, exposing DDT's harsh legacy beyond simple pest control. The chemical comfort blanket unraveled, leaving a mix of long-held trust and environmental grief. That summer, mist was no longer just a shield, but a symbol of humanity's blind reach and the fragile balance between progress and preservation. Next, we dive into the shift that reshaped everyday life from harmful sprays to safer solutions. The rumble of a classic V8, the gleam of chrome bumpers catching the afternoon sun. Cars in the 50s and 60s were symbols of freedom, style, and adventure. Family road trips weren't constrained by the safety tech we take for granted today. No seat belts clamped tight across your lap. No airbags silently standing guard behind the dashboard. Just open roads and the wind rushing through open windows. Kids sometimes perched on booster cushions that barely counted as seats. More often, they sat wedged between parents or sprawled out on the bench seats vinyl, wide-eyed and unstoppable. Lapse belts did exist, but they were an afterthought. Loose straps tucked under cushions or hanging uselessly, more decorative than protective. Your mom might have been driving while your dad lit a cigarette, laughter and music spilling from the radio, the family oblivious to the dangers lurking just inches away. It was a time when the shiny bullet-nosed Mercury or the sleek Chevrolet Bel Air promised endless horizons, not emergency rescues. In those days, crashes were harsh lessons, and safety was something for the future. Automotive engineers were just beginning to explore innovations that would redefine driving forever. Seatbelts dragged from the shadows, airbags crafted like invisible angels, crumple zones built to absorb impact's fury. Even the thought of child car seats was evolving from a makeshift cushion to a certified safeguard. How recklessly romantic it feels, this era of unrestrained travel. But as the decades rolled on, the thrill of speed found a quiet partner in responsibility, traveling safer, smarter, and more aware. And with that, the open road took on a new kind of promise. Sodas in the mid-20th century were sugar explosions waiting to happen. Glass bottles crackling open, fizz escaping, sugary syrup flooding your tongue. Peak sweetness levels often hovered around 10 teaspoons of sugar per 12-ounce serving, a staggering amount by today's standards. Your morning bowl of cereal wasn't just about crunch. It was a kaleidoscope of colorful marshmallows and sugary flakes. Brands like Cap'n Crunch and Fruit Loops proudly wearing their sugar badges. Each spoonful promised a burst of sweetness, making breakfast a mini celebration of sugar rushes. Candy counters were shrines of saccharine delight, where your fingertips eagerly traced shiny wrappers of candy bars, gummies, and licorice. The sugar buzz was omnipresent, every snack aisle a dopamine hit in powdered or syrupy form. Society embraced sugar as innocent indulgence. The science warning signs wouldn't arrive in force until decades later. Soda brands like Coca-Cola and Pepsi were symbols of American joy, their bubbly sweetness a staple at diners, family picnics, and lunch breaks. Yet behind the scenes, sugar intake was ballooning, quietly adding pounds and cavities while fueling endless cravings. It was a golden era of hedonistic sweetness before the sugar crackdown, a time when less sugar was rarely a concern, just a whispered caution for the future. And downstream from this sugary frenzy, health debates and shifting diets would soon stir, changing the way sweetness found its way into everyday life. Mercury sat silently in your home's old glass thermometer, a slender column of shiny silver that rose steadily as your fever climbed. This liquid metal, dense and gleaming, wasn't just in thermometers, it seeped into thermostats, switches, and even some style-forward light bulbs, trusted for its precise, reliable response to heat. When you shook down the glass tube, you weren't just watching temperature change. You were interacting with a miniature scientific marvel. The way mercury expands and contracts so predictably made it the gold standard for decades. But, of course, all that shine concealed a hidden danger, the toxin within. One shattered thermometer sent a tiny pool of mercury beads scattering across the floor, shimmering temptingly but threatening slow harm with every breath you took nearby. Parents and schools began to banish these shiny relics, wary of the vapors that could build up from even small spills. Slowly, the era of mercury faded, replaced by digital and alcohol-based thermometers. Safer, less fragile, and proudly mercury-free. Yet even now, the sight of that quicksilver flash sparks a sense of nostalgia for a pre-digital world where precision was strangely organic and oddly dangerous. As we switched to safer devices, that liquid metal's glowing reign ended, but its legacy as the silent sentinel of measurement still shines faintly in memory. Electric massagers and early vibrators weren't hidden away behind discreet packaging or tucked into specialized boutiques. Instead, you'd find them right there on the shelves of pharmacies and department stores, nestled among heating pads and shampoo bottles. These devices were marketed as health tools, electrically powered personal massagers, designed to soothe muscles, relieve tension, and promote relaxation. The catalog showed them alongside electric foot baths and back scratchers. No wink or nudge about where else they might be used. Whether it was the Hitachi magic wand or Oster vibrator, The language stayed clinical, even a little bland. Vibrations for muscle rejuvenation, they claimed, or home therapy. No taboo whispers here, just a straightforward pitch to stressed-out housewives and factory workers alike, who valued anything that could ease aches after a day in tight shoes or at a sewing machine. These devices symbolized a kind of 20th century optimism in technology's ability to improve everyday life. Using an electric massager was about self-care in the era before. Wellness spas and yoga mats colonized our minds. Of course, some buyers surely saw the double meaning, but public messaging kept it firmly in the realm of health and household utility. That mainstay of 20th century candidness about domestic appliances erased boundaries we might expect today. Next up, the marathon of 20th century washing machines. How laundry day transformed from slog to spectacle. The crack of a cap gun echoed through the backyard, a sharp, tiny explosion that sent your heart racing. You gripped that plastic pistol hard, feeling like a frontier hero out on the wild prairie. Those toy guns weren't just playthings. They were passports to daring adventures, Wild West shootouts, and secret missions under the big summer sun. Manufacturers crafted these replicas with surprising detail. The shiny metal caps loaded inside made a reassuring pop with every pull. Realistic rifles, complete with wood-like stocks and metal barrels, sat proudly on shelves, tempting you with visions of cowboy legends and soldier stories. There was something thrilling about the smoke smell from those caps, the flicker of light, and the satisfying bang that confirmed your secret power. Parents then rarely questioned the safety or implications. No red flags from authorities interrupted the summer symphony of blasts and laughter. The guns didn't feel dangerous to boys dreaming of the Old West or heroic battles. They felt magical, a symbol of childhood freedom, courage, and imagination unleashed. Looking back now, it seems wild that such realistic toy guns fired tiny explosions without much fuss. Today, laws and concerns about realistic toy weapons have tightened, reshaping what children play with and how we balance thrill with caution. But none of that changes the sharp crack of a cap gun or the reckless joy of those summer gunfights in your backyard. And just ahead, we pause to savor the aromas of a simpler time's favorite family dinner. Meatloaf and mashed potatoes, plated with care and eaten under the glow of kitchen radio songs. Remember the thrill of unwrapping a toy only to discover tiny plastic treasures spilling out? Marbles, metal balls, or those bright, shiny plastic bits that gleamed like candy, all tossed into your toy box without a second thought. Button batteries, no bigger than a coin, powered roaring race cars and buzzing gadgets. Their dangers a mystery to every kid and parent alike. No warning labels interrupted your excitement. You learned safety the hard way or just got lucky. Back then, it was a wild frontier of playthings brimming with potential hazards nobody talked about. Toys came in all shapes and sizes, often featuring detachable parts meant to fit perfectly in your curious hands. Buttons, tiny screws, even novelty rings could vanish in a flash, sending you into frantic, breath-holding panic. Your mom's cautionary tales were more about "don't lose the pieces," not "beware of choking." There were no safety recalls for tiny bits that might slide down a child's throat or dental fears sparked by swallowing metal gizmos. Instead, there were hospital trips, worried glances, and a growing awareness that sweet playtime sometimes carried real risks. Children's toys were little worlds of adventure, danger at the edges largely unregulated, as if the only rule was to keep playing. Today, warning labels crowd packaging like red flags, and toys face strict scrutiny before hitting shelves. In that contrast lies the bittersweet truth. Innocence came with risks we barely acknowledged, shaping childhood memories stitched with daring and danger, but the urge to play wild, free, and curious was always stronger. The sharp crack of the wooden ruler snapping against a desk was as common in classrooms from the 1930s well into the late 20th century as the ringing school bell or the shuffle of feet in the hall. Teachers held firm the belief that a swift, open-handed spanking or a ruler strike wasn't just discipline, it was necessary for molding good behavior. Your dad's schoolhouse echoed with these sounds, a kind of rough justice wielded with bent-over palms and sometimes a slow, deliberate hand across the backside. In homes, too, the occasional sting of a public spanking was no scandal. It was a clear signal that boundaries had been crossed. Mothers might raise a hand firmly, fathers a swift smack on the trousers, with little question about the morality or necessity of such punishment. Even the air seemed charged with the threat of correction, part of everyday soundscape. The rationale was simple. Children had to learn respect, obedience, and self-control, and this was discipline made visible and memorable. Psychology experts started shifting views from the 1960s and 70s onward, promoting gentler coaxing and reasoning over the sharp sting of corporal punishment. Laws began restricting or banning school paddlings state by state, and the steady decline reflected a deep cultural shift away from physical punishment as a routine practice. Yet for many adults today, those memories of the ruler's crack and the firm hand linger, not just as pain, but as markers of a vastly different era's approach to childhood and authority. Next, we'll explore what replaced these old-school methods as kindness and conversation found their way into discipline itself. A cold meant nights wrapped in thick blankets, a hot cup of tea, and a dose of mysterious amber syrup with a faint metallic scent. Mercury wasn't just lurking in your old fever thermometer, it also found a place in some cough syrups and cold remedies. Brands like Calmexa and Merthiolate promised quick relief, their labels boasting the latest scientific breakthroughs. You trusted these potions, believing in their power to tame your cough and clear congestion. The medicine bottle's glass felt cool and reassuring in your hand, as if containing a potent modern miracle. What you didn't know was the hidden danger inside, small amounts of mercury, a toxic metal now infamous. Back then, the risks were invisible, no warnings, no headlines. You swallowed it down in hope, not suspicion. The mercury was there to prolong shelf life and fight infection, but its toxicity was a ticking time bomb. Over time, health authorities would uncover the harm, banning these formulas and rewriting public trust in pharmaceuticals. The glow of scientific progress dimmed as the true picture emerged. Today, mercury's role in medicine is a cautionary tale. Modern cold remedies are safer, with clear ingredient lists and regulations. Yet, there's a bittersweet nostalgia for that era, where advances and risks coexisted in every spoonful. Moving from ancient cures back to the safer, cleaner treatments of the present shows how far medicine has come, but also what we once blindly accepted. In an era when cigarettes came unfiltered, every drag was a bolder statement, a ritual smoky cloud without apologies. The packs themselves often boasted endorsements from trusted doctors, their lab coats promising health and vitality in the puff. Ads flooded magazines and billboards, showing smiling physicians lighting up with the tagline, "More doctors smoke Brand X than any other cigarette." It was a time before filters promised safety, so the smoke was thick, full-bodied, and brazenly unfiltered, slinking through smoky lounges, diners, and office break rooms with the ease of common currency. Cigarettes were social glue, a shared experience where the haze curled around conversations, breaking barriers even as tar silently built inside lungs. Women and men smoked alike, imagining sophistication, stress relief, or a health boost, ironically trusting the very medical professionals who today would shudder at the thought. The allure wasn't just the taste or the ritual, but the powerful marketing machine that spun certainty out of smoke. "It's not just tobacco," the ads insisted. It was a doctor's recommendation, a badge of modernity and wellness. Of course, this rosy image masked the harsh realities of addiction and disease that lingered unseen, cloaked beneath the glamour and myth. The contrast with today's filtered, regulated, heavily warned brands couldn't be starker. What was once health advice is now cautionary tale. That smoky social ritual remains etched in memory, when confidence ringed every cigarette and trust was just a lighter flick away. This smoke-filled nostalgia leads us forward to how those marketing myths would eventually crumble, reshaping public awareness forever. The sturdy icebox sat proudly in the corner of the kitchen, a bulky wooden cabinet lined with thick layers of insulation and metal trays that held solid blocks of ice. Unlike today's humming refrigerators, this giant chest kept food fresh through the slow, steady chill radiating from ice chunks delivered weekly by the neighborhood iceman. No electric buzz disturbed the quiet household. Instead, you heard the scrape of the ice pick as Mom chipped away cubes for the evening's cold drinks or the crackle of frost melting inside the box. Each week's ritual was part chore, part comfort. Dad would haul giant blocks upstairs, balancing them on his shoulder, while Mom arranged perishables, milk in glass bottles, butter wrapped tightly in wax paper, and hearty root vegetables in neat compartments, all protected by the melting ice. The kitchen air held the sharp, crisp scent of cold water dripping into the drip pan below, a sound signaling freshness preserved without electricity. Groceries required planning. The icebox had finite space and a strict temperature range, so shopping often revolved around what could last until the next ice delivery. Leftovers cooled slowly, and the iceman's arrival was almost holiday-like, a reassurance that warmth and cold kept their rare balance here. This slower rhythm of food storage echoed a gentler domestic pace, far removed from today's non-stop fridge buzz and instant cooling. Next, the chilly tale continues with the gradual march toward electric refrigeration, changing how kitchens whispered their quiet stories. In the fizzy world of classic citrus sodas, there was a secret stabilizer keeping your bubbles lively and your orange slices floating just right. Brominated vegetable oil, or BVO. This invisible ingredient slipped quietly into popular drinks like Mountain Dew and certain Fanta flavors from the 70s through the early 2000s, marrying the oil-based citrus flavor with sparkling water so they wouldn't separate into an unappetizing slick. You barely noticed it then, just the snap of carbonation and the bright, tangy rush on your tongue. But BVO's story was more complex than those carefree gulps suggested. As a bromine-containing chemical additive, BVO raised eyebrows over health concerns linked to bromine accumulating in the body, leading to regulatory scrutiny. While the U.S. FDA allowed its use for decades, many countries banned it completely, and consumer pressure mounted in the 2000s as clean label and natural ingredients became the beverage industry's new rules. By mid-2020s, major soda makers reformulated products. No more BVO lurking in the ingredient list. The stable sparkle survived, but with more transparent chemistry. That fizzy rush you chased as a kid now comes with a fresher promise, a nod to how tastes have shifted beyond flavor to trust. The bubbles are just as bright, but the secret ingredient, it's one you don't miss. And across the aisle, the soda aisle keeps reinventing itself, fizzing forward with new blends and vintage nods waiting for the next sip. The night air vibrated with the sharp crackle of fireworks, unauthorized but wildly welcomed. In a time before permits and noise ordinances, your neighborhood wasn't just a place to live. It was a spontaneous carnival of light and sound. On any weekend, or no special reason at all, kids and grown-ups alike would haul out cartons of firecrackers and rockets from basements and garages. Grandma's rusty sparkler stash made its annual comeback. The sky exploded with color, brilliant reds, greens, and blues streaking wildly, lighting up treetops and sparking shadows on weathered porch walls. The smell of sulfur mixed with laughter as kids darted, popping small snaps beneath their feet. Neighbors gathered on sidewalks and driveways, faces glowing in the fire's hue, voices raised in cheers and playful warnings. This chaotic, joyful rebellion was the unofficial soundtrack of summers and holidays alike. Then came the regulations, permits, curfews, safety zones, slowly draining the spontaneous magic. Fireworks shows moved to parks or stadiums, sanitized and professional, but missing the raw thrill. The echoes of those backyard explosions linger in memory. The breathless moments before a rocket soared, the shared surprise when a firework burst unexpectedly close overhead. That sense of wild communal freedom, no permission slips needed, slowly faded into quiet nights. Yet whenever a spark is struck now, it ignites not just colors, but a yearning for those untamed skies. Gasoline in the mid-20th century wasn't just fuel, it was a chemical cocktail powered by tetraethyl lead. This compound, toxic yet transformative, smoothed out those engines like a charm, reducing knocking and boosting octane. Your family car purred with newfound ease, cruising highways that gleamed under clear blue skies. Behind the scenes, invisible lead particles billowed with every exhaust puff, darkening city air and clinging to lungs. Smog thickened, a murky envelope accepted as the price for a quiet ride. Service stations proudly advertised leaded premium gasoline, a sign of high performance, despite the dangers lurking beneath. Mechanics understood the trade-off well, knowing that without those lead additives, engines would sputter and knock, suffering damage that spelled expensive repairs. The metal's toxicity wasn't fully grasped by the public, who mostly noticed the distinctive tinny exhaust smell and the thrill of a powerful drive. As decades passed, mounting scientific studies exposed lead's deadly grip on health, especially children's development, triggering a shift in policy and engineering. The phase-out began, unleashing an environmental revolution and cleaner air initiatives. Modern fuel now bears the unleaded stamp, a badge of progress and caution. Yet every startup still carries echoes of that leaded past, a reminder of how innovation can come with hidden costs. Soon, we'll explore how tuning those classic engines felt in your father's garage, a hands-on craft now reshaped by regulations and technology. The lunch bell rings, and you head to the cafeteria, eyes locking onto that familiar tray layout, processed meats taking center stage. There's a thick slice of bologna, perfectly round, pink, and glistening under fluorescent light. Next to it, a rectangular slab of Spam, its browned edges hinting at salty satisfaction. These cold cuts are the lunchtime workhorses of post-war America, cheap and endlessly convenient. The smell of slightly warmed bologna sandwiches mixed with faint canned meat aromas fills the crowded room, a scent that weaves nostalgia and industrial optimism. Back then, processed meats like Hormel's Spam and Oscar Mayer's bologna were heralded as protein-rich, shelf-stable miracles, food that could feed the masses fast and affordable in a world still rebounding from wartime rationing. School lunch programs leaned heavily on these products, trust in factory-made uniformity running high. The slices were even, the portions predictable, ready to be slapped between white bread or served alongside mashed potatoes and canned peas. Yet beneath that convenience lurked a later reckoning. Growing health awareness began to question these staples. The high sodium, nitrates, and preservatives, once unseen as problems, started casting a shadow decades later. Today, many school cafeterias have moved on to fresher choices, reflecting an evolving diet culture that seeks to nourish rather than just fill. But those processed meats remain emblematic of a past era, both culinary and cultural, where efficiency and uniformity shaped what kids ate and what lunchtime meant. And as the tray clears, new flavors take their place, signaling the next chapter at the school table. The moment you stepped into a mid-century classroom or office, your eyes met the sharp, relentless glare of fluorescent tubes overhead. These bright, narrow bulbs weren't just lights. They were a revolution in illumination, cheap, efficient, and bright enough to banish even the faintest shadow. But that brightness came with a cost, a constant, subtle flicker that played tricks on your eyes and a low hum that hovered like a tired drone buzzing in your ears. Fluorescent lighting replaced the warm, soft glow of incandescent bulbs and the soothing dance of daylight streaming through windows. Instead, you got a pallid, bluish-white wash that flattened every surface, every face, making the world feel a bit colder, a little more sterile. Your classroom ceiling, once a canvas of quiet warmth, was now a grid of buzzing tubes, mechanical and unforgiving. The effect could be draining, even maddening on long afternoons, especially for kids trying to stay attentive under the oppressive glare. Offices and supermarkets followed suit, adopting fluorescent fixtures en masse, signaling a new era of productivity and energy-saving pragmatism. Yet that energy came at the expense of comfort and ambiance. The flicker, invisible to some, was a quiet disruptor, a subtle muscle twinge, a spark of irritation that worsened fatigue and frayed tempers. Looking back, fluorescent lights symbolized that tension between progress and human experience, a cold glow in an era that tried to modernize everything, including how we live and work inside. And just as that harsh light flickered on the ceiling, so too did the first inklings of dreams for a softer, more human future of illumination. Back then, your baskets brimmed with gleaming apples and perfect bunches of leafy greens, fresh from farms that dusted them with potent sprays we now know were anything but safe. DDT, chloridane, and other pesticides, legal and widespread, clung invisibly beneath the glossy skins and tender leaves, immune to your washing ritual. You barely noticed the faint chemical scent masked by earth and citrus, nor questioned the brilliance of those unnaturally flawless fruits and veggies. Produce aisles glowed with this almost too good to be true shine, a hallmark of post-war progress and agricultural optimism. The idea: kill pests, boost yields, and feed booming families quickly. Your mom rinsed those vegetables under tap water, the same way your school cafeteria served crisp salads, unwashed or lightly wiped, trusting experts who promised safety. No labels warned of residues or health risks, no recalls rattled dinner tables. This was an era caught between faith in fast science and a blind spot toward long-term harm. The shimmer of convenience hid a careless gamble, invisible chemicals that later sparked bans and decades of scrutiny. Today, your grocery trip involves scrutinizing organic tags and using produce brushes, thoughtful in a way your 1950s kitchen never was. Looking back, that unregulated patchwork of pesticides reflects a simpler time tinged with risky innocence. It challenges us to honor the progress of food safety, appreciating clean, chemical-free harvests, while remembering the quiet dangers once casually accepted in the homes, schools, and streets we nostalgically revisit.